Hi guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to go ahead and talk about the books that I've recently read so far in 2021. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first book that I picked up at the beginning of the year is called Lakewood by the debut author Megan Giddings. And this is a story about a young black woman by the name of Lena, who decides to drop out of college because her grandmother recently passed away and left Lena and her mother with a ton of debt. And Lena is now also responsible for her mother's healthcare expenses because her mother has been dealing with a undiagnosed illness that she's been dealing with for years that has prevented her from being able to work. So, in order for Lena to take care of herself and her mother, she decides that she's going to sign up for this research study that will pay thousands of dollars for her to take experimental drugs. So, in order for her to participate in this study, she has to move to this isolated town by the name of Lakewood. And while she's there, she's not allowed to have any contact with her mother, not any contact with any of her college friends. It's just herself and these participants and the people that live in the town. I did mention she is a black woman, and the people in this town are predominantly white. So, the participants in this study, they have to quote unquote work at the shipping company, and the shipping company is actually a front for where the experiments are taking place. And I believe they did this just in case the any of the participants were to interact with any of the people that live in the town. If anyone questioned where they worked, they would be able to say that they worked at the shipping company. So basically, in this story, we are following Lena and a couple of the other participants. We are watching them take different medications for things that these doctors are trying to develop. So, an example would be they are trying to develop these eye drops that can change someone's eye color from blue to green. They are trying to come up with a drug that will cure dementia. They're trying to come up with a drug that'll help people not forget things as often. So we are watching these people take all these experimental drugs. We're watching the effects that it has on their bodies, and these are negative effects that this has on these bodies. And the main thing that this story is trying to um, let be known is how in our world how black people have been used basically in the name of science, how our black bodies have been used for scientific experiments, and a lot of the times we don't even realize that that's what's happening. And one of the most famous cases of this is the Tuskegee experiment. And this is where I believe it was the CDC injected hundreds of black men with live syphilis to see how their bodies would react to it. And instead of the CDC telling them, essentially what they were really doing, they informed these men that they were just receiving free healthcare, and that wasn't the case. And, that's kind of what's going on here. You're telling these participants one thing, and you're really doing something else. So it kind of brings the question of, what are you willing to do to take care of your family? And that is what Lena is, struggling with. She is, her body is taking a lot of abuse from the different drugs that they're giving her. And, she's trying to decide, is this worth it? Is the money that they're giving me worth me essentially killing myself? And, you know, not only is she thinking about that, but we're following some of the other participants and what they're feeling. And so I enjoyed the story, for what it was and for what it was trying to let be known, especially to people who don't know, what black people have been going through and is still going through when it comes to, medical advancements. And I think the premise of this story is excellent, but I don't think the execution was all the way there. I kind of feel like everything was so rushed in this story. I wanted to be able to really follow Lena day to day in regards to what was happening to her while she was in this study. But I kind of felt like, we were getting snippets. So this book is divided up into two parts. So we have part one and part two. And in part one, it kind of starts off with, why she's deciding to participate in this research study. And then while she's there, we're getting like day one, this and this happened. And then day two, this and this happened. And then we start skipping a whole bunch of days. So it goes from day one and day two to day 27. And then all of a sudden we're at day 45. And it's like, what? What happened? you know, I just kind of wished we really would have gotten a little bit more. Some of the days were a little bit longer. And when I say a little bit longer, they might have been like 2 or 3 pages. And then some days, we're getting 2 or 3 days all in one page. And I just don't really feel like the pacing was consistent. And in part 2, I really feel like it was rushed. Instead of us, seeing the story through Lena's eyes, I feel like everything was just being told to us. This happened, this happened, this happened, the end. And it was just kind of like, whoa. I kind of wanted more. Like I said, the premise was amazing. And, I went into the story with high hopes. I just don't think it was executed that well. I did only give the story 3 out of 5 stars. I would still recommend it. I did see this book kind of being shopped around as like a horror thriller. And I wouldn't say this was horror at all. I would say that the concept of the story is horrifying, with being thrown into an experiment and, having taken all these drugs and don't really know what it's doing to your body. I think that's horrifying. And we've got some disturbing scenes with some of the participants, but it's definitely not horror. And if you had saw that as well and you're kind of hesitant about picking it up because you think it's horror, it's not. I'm not even gonna say it's really all that thrilling. It is good, but I don't think it represents how they marketed it. But it is a good story. Like I said, I did give it 3 out of 5 stars. I just wanted more. So the next book that I picked up is The Shadow Between Us by Trisha Levenseller. And this is a young adult fantasy. And the premise of this novel is really simple. So this is the story about a girl by the name of Alessandra who lives in this country, and her main goal is to make the Shadow King fall in love with her, kill him so that she could take over his kingdom. That's it. And it's really simple. And this book is also on the shorter side. It is a standalone. That's not that common for fantasy novels, but there's a lot that is going on. So not only is, she's trying to get this king to fall in love with her, this king is also using her for his own purposes. In the very beginning of the novel, this isn't spoilery or anything. It literally happens in the first page or 2, maybe. We find out that Alessandra killed and buried one of her ex-boyfriends, and so that's actually catching up with her while she's at the kingdom trying to woo this king. And now they're trying to ask her all these questions about the disappearance of her ex-boyfriend, so she's dealing with that. We also have a bit of a love triangle. She's trying to make friends while she's there, and the Shadow King is dealing with his own problems, and his parents were recently murdered, so he's trying to figure that out. It's so much going on in this story. And for it to be so short, it was done very well. It was entertaining. There were parts that made me laugh. I was angry at parts. There was actually a twist that happens at the end that I was not expecting at all, which upped my enjoyment level even more. I ended up giving this story a 4 out of 5 stars. If you are looking for something that's fun, that's quick, that has the political intrigue, that has the plotting, the scheming, romance, love triangles, family ties, friendships, if you're looking for all that, you will get this in this novel. It's nothing complicated. It's easy to get through. I read this in a couple sittings, and it's very entertaining. I would highly recommend this book. Like I said, I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read that is on my Kindle is Sour Candy by Kellen Burke. And this is actually supposed to be a horror novel. And I'm going to give a brief synopsis because this is a short story, or a novella, I guess you could call it. And it's only like 67 pages, and I don't want to spoil it. So, what I will say is, it's about a man who is in Walmart, I believe, and he is down the candy aisle, and he encounters a woman who is looking for candy, and she is with her son, and he is causing a ruckus in the store. He is screaming his head off in this store, and our main character ends up leaving. He later on is involved in a car accident with this woman, and now he is responsible for this young child. That's all I'm gonna say without spoiling it. Now, did I think this book was scary? No. Did I think that it was creepy while reading it? Absolutely. Unfortunately, after I got done reading it, it was very forgettable to me. And I say that because I am someone that watches a ton of horror movies. And this horror story, I feel like I've seen it done time and time and time again. And unfortunately, I have to say it, I've seen it done better. And my biggest problem was it was so short. And I understand it's a short story, but it could have been at least 100 pages. It could have gave just a little bit more, in my opinion. One of the things that I figured out that I really like about horror movies is I like to know the why behind things. You know, why this person decided to massacre all these people, why this house is haunted. You know, I'd like to know the why. And in this book, we didn't get any of that. It was kind of, yeah, it was creepy while I was reading it. And then afterwards, I was just like, well, what was the point? Like, why was all of this happening? I don't understand. I rated this story 3 out of 5 stars. Would I recommend it? Absolutely, because if you're someone that's dabbing your toes into horror stories and you're not really familiar with a lot of, you know, things that happen in horror, then this will probably be horrifying to you. It wasn't to me. You know, after I read it, it was forgettable. I was like, I've seen this done so many times. It was good for what it was. It was creepy. I did read this in the middle of the night, under my covers, in the dark. So I think that's where a lot of the creepiness came from. And, you know, I enjoyed it for what it was. So the next book that I am going to just mention briefly, because I will have a dedicated video. So the book is The Shining by Stephen King. And like I said, I'm not going to go into any details about the book. I'm not going to go into how I feel about it. I will have a dedicated review for it. I just wanted to go ahead and throw this in there to let you guys know that I also finished this as well. So that's all that I have for you guys. Please remember to subscribe and click on the notification bell so that you are notified for any additional content that I will post. And that's all that I have for you guys. Thanks. Bye.